Hey, hi, Einat. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Kishore. Nice to meet you as well. Good
How's your
evening.
day going?
It's been pretty busy,
Yeah?
but it's ending. It's evening time now, and
Yes.
the offices are pretty empty. I have this guy making sure I'm all right.
Awesome, Einat. Thanks for coming to the call. We appreciate that. So what I'm going to do, is that I have sort of 30 minutes to discuss a lot of marketing things with you, right? And also your background is interesting because you also were a managing director of a business before and became a CMO after that, right? So I'm sure you also have like an interesting perspective about the overall business, but also how marketing actually supports the overall business, right? So really excited to have you on board. The first question, is actually about that, right? Since you are an managing director before, how did the CMO role surprise you? Because you will have different goals and metrics to look at, right? And I'm curious to know what surprised you when you moved to a CMO role?
Yeah, so actually, you're right. I mean, my background has always been in tech companies. So I've worked in application development, integration companies, and now for e-commerce tech. But actually, as you mentioned, I started with sales oriented roles.
Hmm.
So, sales operation and then managing director, which is also all about sales. And before I made this transition to marketing, and I actually think that made me better at my job,
Hmm.
because one of the main challenges that all of us marketers face
Right.
is, I mean, whether we are selling to business or consumers,
Right.
is what's the effect we have on revenue, right? So
Yes.
that's a question that we're always asking ourselves.
Right.
And today I know that as much as it is important for marketing to create that initial awareness,
Hmm.
um, it's equally important to move customers down the funnel
Hmm.
and see that customers actually make it to the finish line, whether it's conversion or buying. So to answer your question, I think that what surprised me is the effect that marketing has on each stage of the buying funnel.
Hmm.
Um, and actually selling gets so much easier when you have good marketing. It's
100%. Yeah. 100% now. With one question on that front, right? Obviously, uh, when you were a managing director, you had like the overall business metrics, right? Like the revenue pipeline, and now you're looking at sort of different metrics altogether. Do you think marketing leaders should care about revenue in general and not just like leads and pipeline? Is that what you think everyone should look at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
What I try to do when I also bring up my annual planning, then I set aside a budget which has no ROI right from
Wow.
the get go. I'm saying, listen, I tell my CFO this all the
Right.
time. I have an amount of marketing budget that is like, don't ask me constantly what's the ROI on that.
Right.
Let's agree,
Right.
although I believe that long term there is an ROI, let's
Yeah.
agree there's no ROI on this. We need to build a brand. We need to look at the long
Hmm.
term. We need to build and educate our audience. And that's not feasible if you're looking for return on investment in the first year. And then I have a budget that is ROI oriented.
Hmm.
And also, when I plan that out, then I like to look at every dollar as having an immediate effect, a long term effect, and a medium effect.
Hmm.
So that's for once. The other thing is, yes, marketing should be measured on revenue. I've seen
Hmm.
so many companies where the marketing hits all their metrics, right? We get all these leads, all these MQLs,
Right.
we get this traffic to our website, but
Hmm.
oops, the
The
company isn't meeting these metrics,
right.
and that's not normal.
Hmm.
So if everybody's working together really to at the same revenue goals, things just align themselves automatically.
Interesting. Yeah, one question on that front. What's your guidance on how much percentage should be allocated for those non-ROI items? Should it be like 10%, 50%, 30%? What should the rough? Because that's a great idea. I think everybody should do that. So wondering what's
Yeah,
the.
it's in the 30%
Oh
area.
really? Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's in the
Yeah.
30% area.
That's awesome. That's a good number to actually think about. So the next question I have is, you guys work with a lot of these amazing e-commerce brands, right? Who are very sort of big on social media, right? So I want to get your thoughts on how should B2B companies think about social media, right? Especially, what's working these days. How can brands think about standing out, because everybody is churning out content? So what's your guidance there in terms of how brands can stand out through social media?
Yeah, that's true. We've seen that. I think that when you want to stand out on social media, you need to think what your customers are there to consume, right? I mean, when they log into the social media, they're not logging on to think, wow, I have to read an Namogoo blog.
Right.
They and you need to get in front of them. So it
Hmm.
depends. It really depends on the social media platform. So
Hmm.
LinkedIn, for example, when people log into LinkedIn, their state of mind usually is we want to stay up to date with industry trends. We want
Correct.
to educate ourselves professionally. So in that case, we want to bring out value-driven content, surveys, or videos around a certain topic that is in the buzz
Relevant.
these days, that sort of stuff. However, when people log into Facebook, usually they do it because they're bored.
Hmm.
So we want to catch their attention with gifs or memes
Hmm.
or tips and tricks and things like that. And what we found out is that TikTok is actually a good channel for B2B
Yeah.
as well, especially when we are addressing the e-commerce market.
Hmm.
They're
Yes.
they're on TikTok. So,
TikTok.
but when they log into TikTok,
Yeah.
they want to be entertained. So we
Hmm.
want to entertain them. We do these behind the scenes videos,
Wow.
and actually, we use our own employees for that. So we have on a really low budget. We create these videos. Our employees know how to create TikToks,
Right.
and we just put that in TikTok. So I think that the secret is understanding which media you are on,
On.
and understanding what it is that your customers
Correct.
came there to consume, and
Correct.
make it interesting enough for them to click on you or give you their time of day.
That makes total sense. On that point, is it a same social media person managing different channels as well, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, or do you have like different team members doing different things in your team?
Well, I wish we had.
Right.
It's two people.
Got
It's
it.
two people managing the social media,
Media.
and yes, definitely we see that it does take a little bit of a different expertise. So we do get some help. Actually, I like people who are more oriented, like they know the difference between a TikTok, a Facebook reel, and a story, and
Right.
they know this
Yeah.
medium. Whereas LinkedIn is more kind of traditional in that way.
Traditional. Yeah.
So with that mix, we
That,
get them covered pretty
that makes
nicely.
sense. So are you on TikTok as well?
Yes, I am.
Oh
I
wow. Because
are
you know it,
you?
no, I'm not actually, because then it feels like I should be on TikTok just to see what people are doing out there, and I feel like I'm missing out on an important channel.
You are. I mean, it's also Snapchat. It's also
Hmm.
Pinterest. I mean, for us marketers, we need just to be in all these channels in
Channels.
which our customers are.
Exactly. That makes sense. I think the other sort of question similar to what I sort of asked about is, I feel like every SaaS category you take, there are like at least 10 players in any category, right? Well funded, 10 players, right? Super competitive, right? And we can't always rely on like third party ads because the costs are going up, right? So I've been hearing this notion that companies should think about building an audience themselves, like a media company, right? So I'm curious how you guys are doing it at Namogoo in terms of how are you building sort of a brand, an audience that looks up to what you guys are doing. What are the different activities you guys do there?
Actually, you mention it as it's a new thing, but actually, this there's always been a mix between investing in paid media,
Right.
your advertising, PPC, display
Hmm.
ads, targeting. That's, the what we marketers
Yeah.
call paid media.
Right.
And then we have your earned media, right? It's
Mm.
publications, it's third-party blogs, third-party podcasts, and your owned media.
Mm.
And what I see going on, as you mentioned, in the last 2 years, is that the owned media has been like leaving dust to the other types of media. So whether it's
Mm.
your own blogs, own social media, podcasts, communities, that sort of stuff, these is what really builds a quality audience that sticks around. Um, so we're definitely investing in that.
Mm.
I think that today, marketing and specifically here at Namogoo, you know, we understand we need to build an audience, right?
Mm.
I mean, we can't time when our audience will be willing to buy from us, right? So
Mm.
we don't know when they're ready. So every dollar that we spend, as I mentioned before, it's also for the long term. So building an audience, continuing to be stay top of mind until they're ready to talk to sales or try out the product, it's essential. I mean, you can't win otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. For you guys, when the is content the main theme that you guys use to build an audience, or is it blog plus events plus, like, what are the different channels you guys use to actually build that audience for your company?
Well, it's all of the above.
Uh-huh.
I usually the first hook
Mm.
will be the content, will
Content.
be somebody that has seen us on their social media, have seen us in a podcast, has heard about
Mm.
us through these various channels, but obviously not all. We constantly try to expose ourselves to new audience. We don't want to limit ourselves to only the ones that are in social media, where sometimes there's a language barrier. So we always do. So we do go out, obviously, to events. We work with partners worldwide. So,
Mm.
but once they're in, once we get them as part of our audience, then they'll continue consuming content for quite a while,
Yeah.
usually, until they're actually ready to convert, or ready to talk to us on a and have higher intent to buy.
Yeah, that makes sense. One question on that front, since you mentioned events, what do you think of trade shows? What is your general perspective on them? Right, because I think things were different before, but obviously the last couple of years, the digital became an important media, and people are now debating between, hey, should we spend more on digital or should we spend on trade shows? Like, what's your uh, thought on that front?
Yeah, well, trade shows are coming back. Actually,
Hmm.
we're just recently in Shop Talk, which
Yes,
is
stop talk. Yeah,
the biggest
biggest.
event for our industry.
Right.
So yes, we're there. First of
Hmm.
all, we are there. Um, but after a long experience with trade shows, I can tell a few things, right? First of all, the magic doesn't happen at the booth. Nobody cares about your booth. Nobody's going to come to your booth.
Right.
I've grown away from these 10 feet spinning wheels, kind of very expensive
Yeah.
giveaways, that sort of stuff. And really,
Right.
when we go to a trade shows, we want exposure. So we're
Hmm.
looking for the speaking opportunities.
Hmm.
We're looking to cooperate with our partners to make more of an impact. We're looking for fireside chats. We're looking for that kind of engagement. And we're not just, manning the booth and hoping for people to come, which they won't. Um, so am I a believer in trade shows? I think a clever marketing plan has to
Correct.
comprise of them as well. I usually limit myself to around 3 to 4 a year,
Yeah.
because they're so heavy on
The
time and resources compared to the effect that other channels have. So yes, I do put them in the mix, but I'm not betting my leads on them, that's for sure.
No, no, well said. This is a very good point you made. I couldn't agree more on what you all said. So completely in alignment with what you said on that part, because I think they are important, but they can't be the entire mix. And like you said, you don't have to spend too much money on those, because you can always do like events around that to make sure that you can draw audience in rather than spending money. But totally aligned on that front. Hey, on a similar path, one thing that I'm personally struggling with is that, usually prospects, when they come to us, right, like when they come to Goldcast, right, they have multiple touch points, right? It's never I'm it's never linear. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, they did this content, you know, sort of went to our event, came to our website, and submitted a demo. It's always like a bunch of things, like, interacting on a different side of things. I'm curious to know how you guys are tracking the customer journey at Namogoo, and how are you figuring out which channels to invest more money into? Like, what's your thought process around that?
Yeah, well, the $1 million question.
Right.
Because yeah, as you mentioned, the customer journey is messy,
Yeah.
for us as well. So what we do is we employ a multi-channel digital strategy, right?
Okay.
And what we try to do, we try to track what drives acquisition as well as retention. So what I mean to say is we focus more on tracking the behavior. We want to understand what grabs their attention, what motivates their next steps. And then we kind of figure out at what point would it be a good point for an SDR to reach out and offer something, or to ask them and what offer, right? Should we ask them to talk to sales? Should we ask them to try our product out? But what we want to do when working in all these channels, and we work a lot, we work on LinkedIn, we work on Facebook, we do webinars, we tweet, we work on TikTok. So we nurture them. We have a newsletter and the website visits. So we track a lot of digital channels.
Hmm.
And what we constantly try to understand is what's their behavior, what leads to the next action. And looking at our marketing automation,
Hmm.
we have we have dozens of different journeys which we're trying to optimize. If they're interested in that,
Oh.
that would be a good follow up for them. And we try to stay away from just looking at the first touch point or the last touch point, and we understand it's a journey.
Hmm.
We're talking about also, attribution. We try not to be very strict on saying, oh, okay, so because we may have got the lead from LinkedIn, all right, just a normal customer journey. They would start off at LinkedIn reading our 2022 leaders annual survey. Okay, so they would read some interesting content, and then and then they would continue their journey. So they may see a tweet or a poll that we did on Twitter and answer it. All right. And then they may engage with our TikTok videos.
Hmm.
And then we try to understand what their behavior was and try to offer the best next action for them. I think this is our number one challenge right now, but it's like we find it's working really well when we have these multiple touch points. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, they come so educated. They know what we're all about. They know what our USP is. They come to the sales team with high intent, and
Hmm.
then it makes sense as a company to invest more in their pre-sale journey, in order to reduce the sales cycle
Yeah.
and the time it takes to sell. So tracking behavior, actually, that would be my number one tip. Just track their behavior on different social channels and
Yeah.
optimize accordingly, and don't kill yourself over attribution.
Right. Right.
Try to be a little bit more flexible and understand that it's not linear, as you said.
Linear. Yeah. One question on that front, right? So, for example, you mentioned that you guys track the customer journey, right, and try to figure out what makes them move to the next step, right? So, but and for example, if you're doing something on TikTok, right, this won't reflect in the marketing automation journey it's tough to track that, if I'm correct, right? So how do you figure out like, hey, okay, you know what, let's invest more time on TikTok, and because we are seeing that make that change in the customer journey, like how do you make that judgment?
Right. So obviously, if they just watched a video and they didn't engage in any way,
Mm,
they didn't share it, they didn't like it, they didn't, they didn't do anything about it. It's harder
yeah,
to track.
yeah.
What we try to do is we try to measure the soft conversions as well, right? So they don't need to request a demo. It's
Mm,
we if they commented, if they answered a poll, if they downloaded something, if we then see a correlation between
mm,
showing the TikTok ads and visits to our website,
yeah.
then we understand we made the impact. Yes, not everything is fully
Correct.
measurable, especially talking about behavioral
Yeah.
aspects. But we try to measure soft conversions, micro
Mm.
conversions, and see their effect.
Got it. Got it. And so one question that I should ask before, are the customers of Namogoo primarily in the SMB side? Like, or is it SMB, mid-market enterprises, different segments that you focus on?
Yeah. So what we're proud of is that we actually serve every type of
Wow.
e-commerce customers, from
Okay.
the small ones, VSBs, very small businesses, to SMBs, to the mid-market and enterprise. And in terms of customers, so if we're talking about volume of customers, then the mass is in the SMBs.
SMB segment.
These are,
Okay.
yes.
There's one question for that, right? Every company wants to sort of, obviously, like I think for you guys it makes sense because the SMB volume is so much, right, in general. But typically, companies want to move up market, they want to go after enterprises, etc., right? Do you see a difference in how you guys market to SMBs and enterprises? Is there like a different motion, or you think at the end of the day it's the same motion? Everyone is the same. We don't do different activities for different personas or different company sizes, I would say.
Yeah, so actually for us, in terms of what you said of always trying to move up market, this is not our take.
Mm,
At the end of the day, you want a lot of customers, you want to grow, um, you want to, and when you're talking about a very limited market of enterprise customers,
mm,
then how many more customers can you have each year, right?
right.
50, 100, like these big enterprises are, they demand a much longer sales
Sales
cycle,
cycle.
and you're not able to scale up. So actually, this is not our motion at all. We love
Mm,
our enterprise customers, obviously, but we're not just focusing on them. In terms of marketing tactics, if we've held this interview 2 years ago, I would tell you, oh, definitely, like it's totally different.
right.
Enterprise, you do this and that. For the
Right.
SMBs, but I think what COVID did is
Mm,
it's just changed the way we market and sell. And now the enterprise buyers are willing. There's a survey or research that was done
yeah.
recently that says that companies today are willing to pay up to
Yeah.
$200,000 with a credit card. So we've all been used to buying online, to that B2B, sorry, the B2C consumer experience. And now even enterprises, they want to try out the product. They want
Totally.
to they want to consume all this information on the
Yeah.
web. And they even put out their credit card. So I
Yeah.
think it's getting closer
Yeah.
to where, in terms of the customer experience. Obviously, there's still differences
Yeah.
in challenges,
Yeah.
budget, resources. We do have a little bit of a different messaging. Also,
Yeah.
for the larger accounts, we would want to go for a larger buying ecosystem, right? So
Mm,
when you're dealing with an SMB, it can be the owner plus its small marketing
yeah.
team. And when you're talking to e-commerce, they can be like, 200 people on the marketing team and multiple, a champion, a decision maker. So you want to touch all those. So it's a little bit more complex in that sense. But the essence is not that different as it used to be.
No, that's a point well made. Um, we're selling over Zoom these days, like $1 million contracts over Zoom. So things have definitely changed. So I don't, I don't disagree with that point. It's a point well made. Yeah, the one thing I was looking at your website was that you guys have a lot of case studies on the website, right? Like a lot of case studies on the customers page. Uh, Obviously, I've seen companies stop with like 10 case studies. Some companies are always investing in customers, customer marketing, and stuff like that. So how does your customer marketing activities or team look like right now, and how do you guys use the case studies for? Is it more for publicity, for marketing? What's your sort of thought process in having like a lot of case studies on the website?
Well, I think it's back to the fundamentals. I
Mm,
mean, what we want to make sure is that our customers see the value in the product,
mm,
and adopt the product in a good way. So it actually starts. It's back to basis, right? We want to make sure that they have a good, customer lifecycle communication. This is something that we're very focused on in Namogoo. We want to make sure that they get the right interaction from us according to where they are in the life cycle. Um, so that's the basic. Like, make sure your customers are happy, they adopt the product, they see the value. And then what we try to do at the marketing team is actually have a really direct interaction with our customers. So although we have an amazing customer success team and account management and all of that, we also try as marketers to be in front of the customers directly, talk to them, understand what they would want more from the product, and we deliver those insights back to the product team and the customer success team, and we use it to refine our messaging. um, and it also creates this, direct connection.
mm,
We're able then to engage them in customer advisory boards,
mm,
or doing these types of case studies,
mm.
or getting reviews. Um, so I think it's down to two things, right? Have a good customer communication that helps product adoption, make sure they adopt and see the value, and then make sure you don't forget that direct connection with your
Connection.
customers. Um, and then getting case studies is easy if you've
Yeah,
built it.
the relationship.
Otherwise, it's pretty hard, right? Just coming
Yeah.
to a customer, hey, you've never heard about me, you've never seen me before, but please
Give me a case study.
give
No,
me
for sure. For sure. I completely agree. But also, I feel like a lot of CMOs have been investing in customer marketing lately because retention has become such a huge, important metric in SaaS these days. So it's not only just getting new pipeline, but also making sure that these customers stay for the next 3-4 years to get the value. So
Absolutely. Only it's funny how B2B is getting more similar to B2C these days,
mm,
talking about lifetime value and
right,
lifetime value versus cost of acquisition.
right.
So definitely, also for us, acquiring customers is really, really expensive.
Mm,
So we do have retention metrics on our KPIs. We
mm,
continue these customer advisory boards and community events,
mm.
and that sort of thing, as well as you mentioned the digital touch points. Like, they don't end once we have a customer.
Right.
Um, so once we have a customer, we will change the experience. We will change the content that we show. Not
Yeah.
necessarily, by the way, not all the time, but we continue. We want to stay top of mind for them even after they've become our customer.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks a lot for coming to the call. I have a last couple of questions that I want to just generally ask you. Are there any books you're reading that you would recommend to the audience members? Or any books you've read before that you would recommend to people
Yeah,
to give a read?
any Kindle books. So actually,
Yeah.
what's as Namogoo is in the behavioral science.
Mm,
Um, so I've got acquainted to Dan Ariely, which is has a lot of books around consumer behavior and how we make decisions. And so recently I've read I think it's called Irresistible Predictions.
Irresistible
I've also
predictions.
took his LinkedIn course
Oh.
around. Yeah, it's amazing how we make decisions, how the human brain is not adapted to make decisions, and we make wrong decisions all the time.
Hmm.
So it really helped me to try to understand how I can train my brain
Right, right,
to make better decisions
right.
in my personal life and in my career. So I
That's awesome. Which book is it again, Irresistible Decisions?
yeah, let me. It's I it was irresistibly predictive. Just a second, let me make
Yeah,
sure
yeah, yeah. I would love to.
I got it. Predictably irrational.
Oh,
That's
predictably rational. Interesting.
predictably
Oh, yes, I
irrational.
got it.
Yes.
Dan Ariely. Okay, 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 okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So
Wow.
so yeah,
Yeah,
Dan Ariely is
the
quite a
author.
well-renowned professor, and talking about multi-channel. So yes, I've read his hardcover and also took his LinkedIn course.
LinkedIn
And
course.
these
Okay.
this kind of things, they have new topics every time, which is fascinating.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's again, that's a good book to recommend. And who's one more CMO you would recommend us having on the show? Anyone that your network that you really respect and sort of look up to, and like sort of you think we should have on the show?
Yeah, I love what Asaf Schulman from Firebolt is
Oh,
doing.
right, 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 right,
What
right.
I love about what he's doing is,
Yeah,
like, again, we talked about it, and it's constantly he's taking
yeah.
B2C ways and really implementing it into B2B. And I think he has a really good understanding of his target audience and how to engage with them in a
Unique way.
very unique way. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good word.
I think if I'm right, I think he did a video game recently on I don't know to promote something on LinkedIn, right?
Exactly. So you
Uh-huh.
understand
Creativity that goes
the
into.
creativity.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
he's
that's a good
really
name to
he's
recommend.
really he's a really cool marketer.
Okay, God. I'll tell him that you recommended him on the show. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot for this call. Really, really appreciate your thoughts and transparency. Um, we look forward to working with you as a customer as well. But really good session. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Kishore. It was a
Awesome.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
awesome. Thanks,